Welcome to the City. I'm Anthony Wilson, the Public Information Officer for the City of San Angelo. And joining us for our first segment today is our Police Chief, Tim Vasquez. He is here to talk about the new open carry law that takes effect statewide on January the 1st. Chief, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So as I mentioned, January 1st, Texas' new open carry law does take effect. What's important for citizens to know about this new statute?
You know, I think the main thing is we all have to understand that this is something new to the entire state. This is something we've never seen before. And so we also really need to go into this knowing that we're going to see people at the grocery store, at Walmart, at the HEB with a sidearm, and not to be necessarily alarmed. There's going to need to be other things for them to be aware of that alarms them other than someone just carrying the weapon.
So you are the president of the state's Police Chief Association. What's the general feeling among your peers regarding this new law?
You know, I think the majority of the membership opposed open carry. I'm pretty sure that we all supported concealed, but open carry is very problematic, and we saw that. When there was an amendment that was attached to the bill that was going to not allow us, going to prohibit us from stopping someone and asking for a license, we went all in full force, and we were able to block that amendment, knowing the law was still going to pass. We knew the law was going to pass because they had the votes, but it wasn't something necessarily that we were supportive of.
And so to be clear, in order to openly carry a firearm, you must have a concealed handgun permit.
Yes, basically the law is the same as it was with the concealed handgun license permits, except basically they just took out concealed, the word concealed. And so you have to have a handgun permit, and you have to have that to legally carry a weapon.
You mentioned that most police chiefs seem to be in opposition to this law. Are you in agreement with their assessment?
Yeah, you know, I believe in the Second Amendment. I think everybody should have a right to own a firearm and protect themselves. Where I see it from a police chief perspective is initially in our community, we're going to see an increase in calls for service dealing with this. And this is going to be something that we're going to have a learning curve with, and not just the citizens, but the officers as well. We've created policy already on how we expect our officers to deal with folks, but we want the license holder, the person that's carrying the weapon, to also understand that there's a responsibility that comes with that. And that responsibility is to prove to us that you are licensed and to be mature about the situation, because we're all going to be learning.
Well, and I want to get to that in just a second, but first I want to talk about sort of from a citizen standpoint, because we've all been conditioned that if you have a badge and a gun, you're a good guy. If you have a gun and no badge, you might be a bad guy. So what should citizens be looking for in order to differentiate between someone who's a law-abiding citizen versus someone who's looking to do some harm?
You know, it's going to be very difficult to tell the difference, to be quite honest. I think that, the law requires that the handgun permit person carry the weapon in a holster on their waist or in a shoulder holster. So if you see someone carrying a pistol in another form than that, then obviously they're in violation of the law, and that should be concerning. We hope that the gun owners are responsible, but as a citizen, if I'm going to be alarmed, if I go to HEB and I'm shopping and I see somebody with a sidearm, I'm going to be on a different level of awareness than I normally would be. And I think that's something that our citizenry is going to have to deal with. They're going to be startled. It's going to be a little nerve-wracking, but we're going to try to it's the law, and we have to deal with it.
Is there any sort of suspicious behavior that people should maybe be taking note of?
Yes. I think that if you're someplace and you see somebody walk in and the gun's in their hand or shoved in their waistband, I think that they probably need to be concerned about that. And the law basically says is if you carry a firearm in a manner that causes alarm, then you are in violation of the law. So that's why they've been so direct to say these are the only two ways that you can carry an open carry firearm.
And are there certain firearms that you're not allowed to carry openly?
No. No, there's not. You can carry anything. You can always carry a long gun. You don't have to have a license to carry a rifle or a shotgun. That the law allows that. It's specific to pistols.
You mentioned that you've already developed some policy and procedure for how your officers should address these situations. Talk a little bit about that. How are they going to be addressing these situations?
The legislature's left the unlawful carrying of a weapon law in place, which basically says that it's unlawful for someone to carry a gun. And then it does say that unless you're a permit holder. That being said, everybody that is carrying a gun on their side or in a shoulder holster, until they prove to us otherwise, are basically unlawfully carrying a weapon unless they have a permit. So our officers if they feel the need and they see someone, they will approach them, say, I need to see your handgun license. They'll provide the permit. And once they provide the permit, if the officer has no other reason to detain that person will be free to go.
Are you concerned that you may see a market increase in your volume of calls related to people calling and saying, "Hey, I'm at such and such restaurant, and there's someone here with a gun"?
Yeah, we're very concerned about the call for service increase that we're going to see. Then it comes into question is are we going to see that many people carrying openly carry? And we may not. So if the number is low of those that choose to openly carry, then our call volume may not be as extreme.
So what's your expectation in that regard? I mean, do you anticipate that we're going to see, it's going to be sort of a matter of routine that we're going to see people openly carrying guns in our community?
Eventually it will be a matter of routine, and we'll have to get used to it. I think there's going to be, it's like a new toy. It's going to be, we're going to see some people that are going to jump right on it and maybe do it a whole lifetime. We may see some people that initially say, I have this right, I'm going to do it. But, from my perspective, when you openly carry a firearm, you become a target. You bring attention to yourself. If I was a bad guy and I'm going to rob a store, I'm going to look to see who's got a weapon, and that's going to be my first target. So I do think, despite us having the law for open carry, you're going to see a lot of permit holders still keep carry concealed.
Getting back just for a second to the number of calls that you may be receiving, especially initially, how are your folks going to determine what to respond to and what not to? How do you combat that?
Initially we're going to respond to every call that we get. I think it's problematic if we don't. We've seen some places in other states where officers have not been sent to someone calling in and someone carrying a weapon, and the dispatcher saying, no, it's okay. They're within the lines of the law, only to have that person go and kill people. And so we're going to be responding. If someone calls and is concerned about someone carrying a firearm, we will respond.
There must be a concern that that's going to slow your response time for other types of calls.
Yeah, and it's not just it's a significant call. When we get a call, a person with a gun right now, we respond usually code 3. Lights and sirens, we're going to that call because we're trying to prevent some type of violent act. Now, knowing that we're going to get a large amount of calls coming in with a person with a gun, we're going to also have to learn and become accustomed to getting more details of the way they're carrying the gun, those type of things. So our dispatchers are going to play a role in the way we respond as well.
Are business owners allowed to determine whether or not guns are going to be allowed to be openly carried on their premises?
Yes. A business owner can prohibit someone from openly carrying in their business. They have to post signs in English and Spanish. They're very specific as to what the wording is on the sign, and they're very specific to the size of the letters. So I think most sign companies here in town know that, so I would encourage a business owner, if they do not want open carry on their premise, that they do this.
Are there specific places where open carry will not be allowed?
Yeah, we have courtrooms, courthouses. What was there's several of them. Places that 51% of their profit or income comes from alcohol sales, which is what we have today. They'll still have that. Sporting activities, interscholastic activities, school campuses are still not allowed.
Do you believe that the open carry law will either prevent or mitigate a mass shooting such as we recently saw in San Bernardino?
You know, that's real hard to say. I have not seen any of these mass shootings where someone is either concealed or openly carry get involved in that. We do hear instances and read articles from across the nation where a robber has confronted someone that has a concealed weapon and the victim ends up shooting the bad guy. And I read those all the time. But as far as mass shootings, I don't know.
So, of course, one of the reasons for passing the open carry law is that it will help prevent crime from occurring. Do you buy that argument that either open carry and maybe even concealed is a way to prevent some crimes from occurring?
No, I don't. What I see concealed and open carry is the right for someone to protect themselves. And I think, concealed, if something happens and I'm in a situation, I have the ability to protect myself with the firearm that I'm carrying. And I think that's what it's about. It's about self-protection and the protection of others. But I don't know. I have not seen the statistics that say this decreases crime.
And from what you know of the concealed handgun training, I mean, is it a good training where you're comfortable that people are being taught the right things and the right way to handle and respond?
I think that people are being taught the right way and the right things. Where I have issue with the qualifications, if you may, is that there's not enough firearm training, enough training with the weapon, enough shooting to make someone proficient. So I'm afraid that we're going to see some people that are going to have a license that are not good or proficient with their weapon, and I'd hate to see them in a firefight spraying bullets everywhere, possibly injuring other people.
And so, by comparison, what sort of training, ongoing training, do your officers have in regards to their handguns?
Now we have obviously we go through a very extensive amount of training in the academy. They become very, very proficient. We have a couple of classes that we do later on in their career that are more advanced. And then we qualify twice a year, but we have our gun ranges open to the guys, and they use it all the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of your officers go out there a lot and expend a lot of their own money just firing and making sure that they're proficient.
I would love to be able to provide them the ammunition to practice. We spend about $45,000 a year right now on ammunition just to qualify and for us to carry. I would love to be able to spend $100,000 and say, here's the ammunition for you guys to practice. They do. They practice on their own dime.
Last question: if someone has questions about this new law and its impact, where can they go for answers?
They can contact us. They can contact our PIO, our community services. They can contact me. They can shoot me an email. I'd be more than happy to try to answer any questions that they might have, and see educate as many people as we can.